Welcome to our Maundy Thursday service. Not Monday, but Maundy. It comes from the Latin mandatum, which means mandate. On this night, Jesus gave his disciples a mandate: love one another. We meet on this Thursday evening of Holy Week to remember Jesus gathering with the disciples in an upper room for a special meal before moving toward the events culminating in his crucifixion. It was upon this occasion that Jesus took the bread and cup and identified them with himself as a means for remembering him. This service is designed to draw us back to the time and recall the experience, the significance of that night. The extinguishing of lights in memory of Christ's passion is called the Office of Tenebrae. That's from the Latin, and it means darkness, or shadows. And it dates back to the 4th century. The gradual extinguishing of lights is symbolic of the flight of the disciples, the approach of the enemies, and the suffering of Jesus. The total darkness recalls the days Christ was in the tomb. Pastor Jim and I don't represent Jesus and his disciples, but the whole of humanity, which shares in causing Christ to suffer. Let us hold fast the faith we confess, for we have a great high priest who has gone into the very presence of God. Our high priest is not one who cannot feel sympathy with our weaknesses. On the contrary, we have a high priest who was tempted in every way that we are, but did not sin. Let us be brave. Let us come forward to God's throne, where there is grace. There we will receive mercy and find grace to help us just when we need it.
Let us go to God in prayer. Eternal God of mercy, we gather in awesome wonder to behold your loving gift of Jesus Christ, who, coming to bring to the world wholeness, was broken by it. Yet by his death we live and know your unbreakable love. As we gather to remember Christ's gift of fellowship and to recall our frail failings of devotion, pierce our hearts with the conviction of our own betrayals. Reassure us of your abiding presence and transform us by the Spirit of Christ, who teaches us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
The shadow of betrayal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me. And they began to be greatly distressed and say to one another, Surely not I, Lord. He answered, The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born. Judas, who betrayed him, said, Surely not I, Rabbi. Jesus said, You have said so.
The shadow of desertion. Then Jesus said to them, You will all become deserters because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples.
The shadow of lethargy. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John and began to be distressed and agitated. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, that hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." He came and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a 3rd time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough! The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners."
The shadow of violence. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign saying, "The one that I will kiss is the man. Arrest him At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on the sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword."
The shadow of denial. Then they seized him and led him away, bringing him to the high priest's house. But Peter was following at a distance. When they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him in the firelight, stared at him and said, "This man also was with him." But he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." A little later, someone else, upon seeing him, said, "You also are one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Then about an hour later, still another kept insisting, "Surely this man also was with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." At that moment, while he was still speaking, the cock crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
The shadow of cynicism. Then Pilate entered the headquarters, again summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would have been fighting to keep me from you. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no case against him."
A shadow of irresponsibility. Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" All of them said, "Let him be crucified." Then he asked, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." So Pilate saw he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning. He took some water, washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." And the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." So he released Barabbas for them. And after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
The shadow of mockery. Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is, the governor's headquarters. And they called together the whole cohort. And they clothed him in a purple cloak. And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. And they began saluting him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes back on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and then be killed. And then, after 3 days, rise again